Hello, welcome to Drawing the Owl episode 3. It is a tabletop RPG design vlog, and I remain Sydney Icarus. I am the Post Malone of the RPG world. Today we are doing episode 3. Episode 3 has one of my favorite things in it, which is we're going to talk about aid moves, helping moves. But first, mistakes. I put this up on screen last time, part of episode 2, and I rewatched episode 2 and saw that I did this great breakout of mechanical and fictional, and then I started by, I don't know what I called it, but I started by mixing the colors up, like immediately, just straight up. I really liked this idea, and then I went and fucked it away. This is what it should look like. Mechanical, fictional, reaching out and doing something by letter or in person is the fictional trigger, and then there is no more fiction in this move except for this last bit, which I, with all respect to Jason Morningstar, I'm not giving any credit because this is just a rewrite of. No, that's not true. That's incredibly unfair of me to say. This is inspired not by a desire to increase the fictionality of the move, but inspired by a desire to keep the move flexible. And I say that, I make that assumption because if Jason wanted to increase the fictionality of the move, he would have done that in here. And yeah, that's a very big assumption I'm making, but it feels right for me. The important thing to talk about now about making mistakes like that is that I don't edit these videos at all. I don't have the time to go back and edit these videos. It's 3:13 in the morning now, and I'm recording this because this is the time that I get today to do game design. I can't edit this and put in annotations and fix everything. I can barely watch them. I unfortunately had to give up watching Mark Diaz Truman's Blades game to watch my first 2 episodes. Yeah, it's. I also think it preserves the integrity of this a little bit because it's meant to be about making mistakes and about putting things out there, not unfiltered, but definitely putting them out there to show you what my process is like. And my process is evidently one where I fuck things up, and one where I misstate my purpose. Like the thing that I said about Jason's move earlier, like, was super unfair. And the way in the first episode I talked about Sean Gomez's game Uncharted Worlds is not my actual feeling of it. I was really reductive, and that's kind of going to happen here, and I'm okay with that. Not because no one will be watching this, even though very, very, very few people will see this, and probably not the people I'm talking about will see this. But I'm okay with putting that out there because this is about missteps. This is about showing you that you can make mistakes and go back and be like, yeah, I fucked that up. Let's talk about it. But for now, I want to talk about helping and interfering. So, help or interfere, we went through when we were drilling into the moves of last episode. Help or interfere is a really important move. We want players to engage with each other and not feel like they're talking through the GM. We want players to like. We want if we drew a GM players. God damn. GM players system, right? If we drew this out as a setup, we would want this to be triangle. without the aid move, it may always be players interacting with the GM interacting with the system, but never like players interacting with each other or players interacting with the system directly. And that is where the aid move comes in. It also works fictionally because, like, we have a character, they're a cyberpunk getaway driver, and the robot sniper hitman takes a shot at them across a crowded street, and they dive out of the way and they roll the move when you dodge fire. And then one of the players says, well, I want to help. How are you going to help? I'm going to cast a shield spell out in front of them to like deflect the bullet. And so we have this scene of the getaway driver diving out of the way and the shield spell being cast, and like it's characters interacting in this really dramatic way. Remember that roles and moves come in at points where there's drama, and so we want players to be interacting where there's drama. So that's why help and interfere is really, really important. It's structured. Actually, we'll talk about the structure properly in a second. But first, this you engage, but you get yourself involved in a cost is really important. So cost and risk are really important in moves, because otherwise what we would see is, hey, I'm going to do a thing. My getaway driver dives out of the way of the bullet, and the wizard will say, I'm going to cast a shield spell out in front of them. And the brain will say, well, I'm going to infect the sniper's brain and something. And like everyone will act together and we'll get like a +5 on the roll, and we'll break apart the success-failure relationship in the game, the economy of successes and failures. And they'll do that for every roll because there'll be no risk. Now, I will say that I think that the way that a lot of games approach how to generate that risk is something that we're going to talk about, and something that I don't enjoy and I don't want in my game. So let's talk about the structure. So the structure of an aid move usually looks like this. Actually, let's look at some examples and then we'll talk about the structure. So, okay. Apocalypse Sword. Let's start with the granddaddy. Basic moves. Now, interestingly, I think Apocalypse Sword actually put it in fairly low. Help or interfere. Here it is. It's this tiny, tiny, tiny move, but I love it. When you help or interfere with someone who's making a roll +X. On a 10+, they take +2 or -2 to their roll. On a 7 to 9, it's +1 or -1. On a miss, be prepared for the worst. Now, the risk of the help move is the same as most moves, which is a 6- is a miss, which keeps the same economy. It keeps +2, -2. But the other way this is balanced out is that competing interests of players in Apocalypse World often make sure that no one has that much hex with each other. A character with +3 hex will only fail on a roll on the dice of 2 or 3, which will upset the economy of success. +3 stats in Apocalypse World games fuck some shit up, and the reason that they're okay is because 7 to 9s are usually a mess. So 7 to 9s propagate fiction as well as misses do. Misses just do it a bit harder, a bit faster, and a little bit less controlled. Usually is too broad. One way to think of 7 to 9s is a 7 to 9 is a miss where the player gets to tell you what the miss is. Dungeon World has a really good example of this. It's in the Fighter playbook. Man, I have not used the classic Dungeon World playbooks in so long that I don't know what they look like. Here we go. So, Fighter, Ben Bar's lift gates. So, yeah, Ben Bar's lift gates. When you use pure strength to destroy an inanimate obstacle, roll plus strength. Great. Let's talk about it from there. A success is that you destroy the thing that you want to destroy and everything kind of works out well for you. A miss should not be nothing happens, because nothing happens is not a GM move. A miss in Dungeon World should be a what are they called? A dank omen? Dark omen? I can't remember what they're called, but like a threat move comes to bear. You're attacked, something like you're destroyed, take away their stuff, that sort of stuff. So I don't think there's a GM section on this, is there? Yes, there is. Great. So this is what a miss should look like. Reveal an unwelcome truth, an approaching threat, use their resources, deal damage, separate them, offer an opportunity, probably with a cost on a 6-, depending on the pacing of your game. And then finally tell them the requirements, consequences, and ask. Now that is what a miss should be. So we know what a hit should look like. We know what a miss should look like. What's this 7 to 9? On a 7 to 9, choose 2. It doesn't take a very long time. Nothing of value is damaged. It doesn't make an inordinate amount of noise. You can fix the thing again without a lot of effort. Now, on a 7 to 9, we are getting pretty much the same stakes as a miss, I would say. If I was jamming Dungeon World and a fighter did Ben Bar's lift gates and he missed, or they missed, and I didn't have a specific agenda in mind. I didn't think that pacing was slow and I needed to pick it up. I didn't have a particular dank omen that I wanted to drop. I didn't have something that I was like really keen to get on the table. I would pick 2 of these. It would either take them too long, and that if that's the stakes of the encounter, or they would break something that's valuable to them, because I'd take away their stuff, right? And the take away their stuff being their time as well. Use up their resources, take away their stuff. The difference is in a situation where all 4 of these matter, in a situation where you want to be quick, you've got valuable stuff you can't afford to lose, you need to be quiet, and you want the thing at the end of it, a miss and a 7 to 9 are functionally the same. The difference is that a 7 to 9, the player gets to choose which bad things they want to deal with. Now, I'm not saying in every circumstance this will be important, but one of the points, one of the intents behind Apocalypse World lists is that if a player doesn't pick something, you should push that button. If the list says it doesn't take a very long time, and they say, well, it's going to take a while, then you should make that consequential. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. So, in my opinion, a 7 to 9 and a miss should look very similar, except that the players get to choose the stakes. Obviously, Apocalypse World is a very flexible game. Sometimes you want to really increase your pacing, so a miss is going to be a lot harder. Sometimes your players are in a really bad spot and you don't want to push it too hard because you want some heroism out of them, so you're going to push it less hard. That's the thing. So that is why normally a +3 stat is not a problem, because a 7 to 9 is still a suka. It's a 7 to 9 is still a problem for you to approach. In Apocalypse World, 7 to 9 on Help or Interfere is nothing. You just don't get as much as what you want. And so there's a problem. There's an economy problem there, which is that players are going to want to roll Help or Interfere a lot. And honestly, the biggest reason I don't see people rolling Help or Interfere in Apocalypse World is that they're in disparate geographies. Players very rarely spend time together. They've got their own shit they need to do, and so they very rarely spend time together. This is mostly a let's talk about Dungeon World. We were talking about Dungeon World. Let's talk about Dungeon World. How does Dungeon World change the Aid or Interfere move? It's over here. If you're having trouble finding it there, Aid or Interfere for Dungeon World is when you help or hinder someone, you have a bond with, you roll plus bonds. Now, what's the difference between bonds and history? Most characters. So in Apocalypse World, you have a level of hex with everyone. It just might be +0 with some people. I guess that's true in Dungeon World too. In Apocalypse World, you are likely to have a positive or negative value for hex with every character by about the second session. That should be pretty true. In Dungeon World, you may you have a limited number of bonds mechanically, and you don't have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of ways to write them. So most people will have +1, +2 maybe bonds. If you are going all in on one character, you can have +3 bonds. I don't think you can have +4. You might be able to, but regardless, because the difference between Dungeon World is not in that roll plus bonds, it's in the cost of the 7 to 9. You also expose yourself to danger, retribution, or cost. Now, this is a lot like the wording of the hard bargain, ugly choice stuff. And I struggle with it, both as a player and as a GM, because I don't feel like it sets viable stakes. I don't feel like it tells me what I should be looking out for. On a 7 to 9, you expose yourself to danger, retribution, or cost. Like, how hard is that cost going to be? And also, they're three pretty like, I don't know, they're three like really specific things to go for, which is great, because like if you really think about retribution can come at any time, cost is probably immediate, danger should probably be immediate. But yeah, anyway, the other thing to mention is that Dungeon World does +1 -2, not +1 +1 or +1 -2. Yeah, sorry. As I said, 3:30 in the morning now. Christ. Dungeon World is +1 -2, not +1 or -1, or +2 or -2. Why is that? I don't really know. I think Dungeon World was because Dungeon World is so much more cooperative than Apocalypse World is. I think maybe they hesitated. They being Adam Coble, Sage Ladra. I think they hesitated to make it +2 because of because of how collaborative characters were. That said, I probably wouldn't have been afraid because of how low the bond stat usually is. But maybe they saw something in playtesting. That'd be an interesting question to ask Adam Coble. Actually, I might tweet that to him at some point. I'm also interested. This is a point that I should bring up, and I bring it up while talking about Dungeon World, but I don't want you to think that I'm talking about Dungeon World. I'm not referring to Adam and Sage's project specifically, but I'm interested as to how many of these people started not by what I'm doing, which is like analyzing each move and writing stuff down, and just by like copying another game's moves and then rewording them for the setting and then changing mechanical things around that when they needed to. I would be interested to see if like we'll see it as we go through, because we're going to go through like 8 games or something like that. We'll see as we go through how similar some of these aid or interfere moves are, and how much they seem like people didn't think about it. It was like, ain't broke, don't fix it, which might be true. I'm not sure. And again, just to be like totally clear, I'm not suggesting at all that that's what any of these people did. I'm just considering it as a concept. This is Mashed. Mashed is your Korean War game about surgeons in a mobile army surgical hospital. Oops. This is help or hinder. To aid or interfere with another player with whom you have history, roll plus hex. On a 10 plus, you choose whether they take either +2 for help or -2 for hindering modifier to their roll. On a 7 to 9, you give them +1 or -1. On a miss, you put yourself in a dangerous position, but the other player receives no modifiers. Two things I want to talk about here. One is that this is almost word for word the Apocalypse World move, which means that it's probably trying to. Now, I don't, full disclosure, haven't played Mashed. I don't know how I don't know how this move works. I don't know how much hex comes out. I don't know if that's like a really, really common thing or not. Let's have a quick squiz. So I'm going to come out just so that I can find things. Calculate your time grade, note your monthly pay. Holy shit! How dope is this stuff? Okay. Nope, that's hex. Roll plus hex. No, that's the hinder move. Oh god, this is gonna be the worst. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's like a backstory move, or anything like that. It looks like there's moves that say players can refuse things and you get plus hex if they take your side and stuff like that. Oh, I'm not going through 82 versions of this. Christ. So it looks like there's moves every now and then that allow you to add and subtract text and stuff like that. But it doesn't look like there's a what does Apocalypse World call it? I think they just call it history, actually. It doesn't look like there's a backstory or history or anything like that. Anyway, let's come back to this move. Okay, the other thing we want to talk about is miss conditions. On a miss, you put yourself in a dangerous position. The other player receives no modifiers. Now, I don't know if this is something MASH does a lot, but we're going to talk. Looks like they do, actually. Looks like I do. We're going to talk about whether we want to have. Come on, baby. Defined miss conditions. Defined miss conditions are interesting because they provide stakes. Defined miss conditions are bad because they inhibit flexibility. Technically, every move has a defined miss condition, which is what we see in Apocalypse World. On a miss, be prepared for the worst. There is an inherent miscondition trigger, miscondition mechanical result that says the GM creates a fictional correction. The GM conducts a move. Christ, 335. I'm a mess, but we're doing this anyway. Monster of the week. Here's the move. When you help another hunter with a move they're making, roll plus cool. 10 plus your help grants them +1. 10 plus help grants them +1, but you also expose yourself to trouble or danger. On a fail, you expose yourself to trouble or danger without helping. Two really cool things that come out of this. It's a help move, not an interfere move. Monster of the Week is an ensemble game. It's kind of like a dungeon game, insofar as you're a team moving towards a shared goal. It's very, very, very far from Apocalypse World in that way, which is great. When you help them, roll plus cool. On a 10 plus, you help grant them +1 to the roll. 7 to 9, you help grant them +1, but you also expose yourself to trouble or danger. On a failure, you expose yourself to trouble or danger without helping. That's kind of cool. I don't like this word as much as I could. One of my favorite things to do in games as a whole is to punish other players for failures on one player's roll, or punish NPCs they care about. I want to blah 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 blah. I want to okay. There's a guy, and he's holding the necklace of Amun Ra in his hand, and one of the character says, "I want to shoot him in the head," and you say, "With my crossbow, because it's monster of the week," and you say, "Okay, roll." Oh, you got a 9. You got a 9. Okay, that's so close. 7 to 9, and the other character says, "No, no, no, I'm going to help out," and they fail. They miss. They fucking throw snake eyes. This move only gives me authority as an MC or as a GM to expose them to danger, which like is kind of weird, because what I want to do is I want them to drop I want the shot to go clean, and they drop the amulet of Amun-Ra, and it hits the ground and scratches, and means that everyone who makes a wish on it now gets like a monkey paw wish, or the amulet breaks and a spirit comes out and possesses the dead body of the baddie, and now you've got to fight zombie baddie or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I want to see broader shit. I want to see stuff that isn't about yourself. I was playing Lady Blackbird last night, and Naomi failed a bodyguard roll, and I didn't hurt Naomi, I hurt Lady Blackbird. And that to me was like, that was a really fun decision to make, because especially because Naomi is Lady Blackbird's bodyguard, and especially because her goal was to try and help her. This is another thing to talk about. It's okay to see what the result is for deciding to help out. This is kind of weird because it implies that the fiction goes in a different direction. But it's this weird space between like the roll is made, and then we exist in like this quantum space, and where the fiction hasn't been decided yet, and it's really, really cool. But this is something we're going to talk about later, about it happening after the roll and why that matters. Monster Hearts. Okay, you can't read these because it's too small. Maybe now you can. Where is the Monster Hearts help move? It's one page, which again, Monster Hearts. Where is the Monster Hearts help move? Maybe over here in pull a string, where you add 1 to your roll against them. No, that's not, because remember, we're talking about moves that exist in quantum, in that quantum space, right? And that just isn't there. This is fucking great in Monster Hearts, because as a teenager, you feel alone, and you should feel alone. And this game makes you feel alone, because other people can help you, but they can't capital H protected word help you. They can help you, but they can't roll the move when you help someone. There is one exception to this. And when I talk about design by absence, this is what Monster Hearts is talking about. Growing up moves. When you make others feel beautiful, they take 1 forward. Now, it would be up to a GM to use this as a help move, where it's like, I'm gonna do this thing, and they do it and it doesn't work, and someone like, oh, before you do it, can I like make you feel beautiful and give you +1 forward? As a GM, you might want to encourage that. But the fact that this is a growing up move, the fact that giving someone else help is a move that you can't do originally, and you have to learn how to do by becoming a fucking adult. And by the way, not only do you become, not only do you have to become an adult or have to grow up to pick this move, when you do, you put the game on a clock. I can't remember the text and I can't remember exactly where it is, but like there's a comment in here about like when you pick a growing up move, you should acknowledge that you're getting towards the end of your game. Which is fucking crazy, right? It's crazy that you've got to do so much just to help someone in Monster Hearts. Cool. Sprawl. Helper Interfere uses links. Links is Hex. Sprawl is Cyberrun. Fuck me. Shadowrun / cyberpunky sort of stuff. I say Shadowrun, it doesn't have any of the magic, but it's like cyberpunk heist. When you help or hinder another character, roll links with them. On a hit, they take +1 forward, -2 forward, your choice. 7 to 9, you're implicated in the results of the other character's move and may expose yourself. So, this is an interesting turn. You're implicated in the results of the other character's move because I'm not rolling to help or interfere with someone unless I know that I'm going to make a difference. So the only time this sentence really matters is if it's a +6 that I'm making, a 6 minus that I'm making into a 7 to 9, unless it's this bit, which is really interesting, like fictionally really interesting. Imagine you are so desperate to make someone get a 6 minus that you 7 to 9 them, 6 minus. So the 7 to 9, you roll links, 6 minus, but you're now implicated. That's fucking crazy. It's also weird that this has an interfere move because, like Monster of the Week, characters in this are allies, although maybe being a cyberpunky shadow running thing about like getting double crossed and wanting different things and people having secret objectives and stuff like that. When I say secret objectives, I don't mean table secret. I mean like the characters might not know each other's backgrounds and objectives. Maybe that's why interfere is a part of that. Also, just fucking like, I love how much beauty and poetry is in things like mix it up and play hardball and fast talk, like in the Sprawls poetry layer of just move names. And I don't know why Helper Interfere doesn't have that. Yeah. The Veil. The Veil. The Veil has a risk move called Help or Hinder. A help move called Help or Hinder. I can't do this at 3:44 in the morning next time. I'm gonna fall over. By the way, you can tell if I've edited this by checking the time code against the time that I say it is. When you act to help or impede, say how you do it and roll. I really like this. I really like the fact that it demands fictionality, but I'm not sure if it's necessary. Like, this doesn't say when you define the constraints of reality, say how you do it and do it. Or when you try to pierce do it, because when you try to pierce the constant illusion of the veil is already a fictional trigger. When you act to help or impede another player's character should be a fictional trigger and is a fictional trigger. I think this is a really good idea, but I think it's wasted text at the moment, which is like fine. It's such a little thing, but it just jumped out at me because I really like what it says, but I don't think it needs to say it. Anyway, on a hit, +1, -2, 7 to 9, expose self to danger, retribution, or cost. What did we see that this is Dungeon World? This is almost word for word Dungeon World. Same problem with yourself from my perspective. Yeah, actually, danger, retribution, cost. We talked about that before as well. Danger, retribution, or a cost. A cost. That's interesting. Oh. Interesting. So Apocalypse World says help, help, interfere, interfere. And the Veil says help, assist, hinder, impede. I wonder if that's. I wonder why we do a different word there. That's interesting. It's also super not relevant to aid moves. Uncharted Worlds has an assist move called Get Involved 1. Sean, that is a not sarcastic clap. It's quarter to 4, mate. I'm so sorry. That is a not sarcastic clap coming from me for, let me pull out. I need my camera for this. Sean, I think you are one of the only designers in Powered by the Apocalypse games that makes their help move say something other than help or aid another or something like that. Aid another's not bad. Aid or interfere is not terrible. It's not bad, actually. But get involved is a really nice title. It's nice enough that this could pull double duty. That's how good that title is. That's how fucking good get involved is as a title, as a name for a move. I have a theory then, and this is not to Sean. This is to the broader audience. I have a theory that a really well written move should do this, and actually we'll look at Apocalypse World and see if Apocalypse World does it as a base. Oh, Apocalypse World definitely doesn't, and that's the thing. So okay, go aggro on someone when you go aggro on someone. Sucker someone, attack someone unsuspecting or helpless. I don't. So these are the two examples. The top one is what I want and what I really like and what I think is good writing, and the bottom one is something I would like to avoid. I think that your move name should be so evocative and so specific at the same time that is also your fictional trigger. Go aggro on someone when you go aggro on someone. It doesn't tell you what going aggro is, but it's so obvious. It's so obvious that going aggro on someone is being violent in their face, being visibly, aggressively violent. That standing away with a sniper rifle is not going aggro. That crossing your arms and saying, I would like you to do this, is not going aggro. Going aggro is dirty harrying someone. It's pulling the revolver, it's putting it in their maw and saying, do it or I'll fucking end you. That is going aggro, and that is amazing. Sucker someone. Same thing, right? Like, you know what suckering someone is. So then why do we have to say when you attack someone unsuspecting or helpless? And I know it's for clarity, but surely we threw clarity out as a defining principle in Apocalypse World a long time ago. Like, we said that things were going to be less clear so that they could be more evocative. That's what I really want to see. So coming back to get involved when you involve yourself in an ally's move. This is that double duty I was thinking about. I was talking about before. Get involved when you see something happening and you get involved. Roll plus the appropriate stat. So that could be really similar to like face adversity, right? Which is like, and actually, holy shit! I did not think we'd be talking about Uncharted Worlds with this much depth on this. This is great. This is fucking great. So what we're going to do is Uncharted Worlds. Why get involved? Can't pull double duty. Can't pull double duty. Why get involved? Can't pull double duty with what's it called? Act. I'm just going to call it Act on the Fire because I am that kind of guy. Okay. Face adversity. Face adversity. So let's talk about what those two moves are. And then we'll go to the Google Doc and we'll talk about what that means. Face adversity is identifier when you overcome opposition or challenge or danger. Roll plus the appropriate stat. 10 plus, good stuff. 7 to 9, price. Hard bargain, ugly choice. Right, cool. Get involved. Choose one. Turn a failure into partial success into complete success. By the way, let's talk about this as well. This step mechanic is interesting because it means that getting involved is always valuable. If you roll snake eyes, someone can get involved to literally drag you out, which is kind of cool. It does mean that you're less likely to see full failures because 7 to 9s, but as we were saying before, if your 7 to 9s are just a miss where players get to choose the consequences, then that's not really a problem. It just means that because you're going to give them with, okay, if I act and get it snake eyes, you roll a 7 to 9 and get involved to pull me out. We then have 2 7 to 9s. And 2 7 to 9s should have such a laundry list of consequences that we have to pick from that the fiction's going to progress anyway. So let's go to this. Uncharted Worlds, why get involved? So what do they look like? Face adversity is 10 plus, get it. 7 to 9, hard bargain, ugly choice. Is it worst outcome? Worst outcome, hard bargain, ugly choice. I know technically Uncharted Worlds doesn't say worst outcome, but whatever. That's what that means. And then get involved is 10 plus is 1 step. 7 to 9 is 1 step with cost. Okay. This is why get involved can't pull double duty because it can't, because they have different fictional outcomes. They have different mechanical outcomes that they're searching for. If we were to do this, it would have to say face adversity. Actually, we're using get involved because it's a great title. So get involved. When you see something happening and want to get involved. No, not want to, because it's not to do it, and get involved. Roll plus stat. We're also going to talk about plus stat versus plus hex and bonds at some point too. Stat versus hex. When you see something happening and get involved, roll plus stat. So 10 plus, you sufficiently get involved. And then it would have to say, choose one. Sufficiently get involved. Choose one. Change the allies role. Change an allies role. 1 step. That should be like unresolved / unfictionalized. Whoops. An allies unresolved, unfictionalized role 1 step. Or bypass a danger self or something like that, right? Like, because remember, we're trying to pull double duty and face adversity here. And then 7 to 9 would be choose one above, but it doesn't work out how you planned. Worst outcome, hard bug, ugly choice. So that's, we've now just made our help move integrate into our act under fire, which is good because remember what we said about act under fires in this, which is we're going to try and avoid it. It's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea whether we can integrate them. So let's put down here, oops, integrate with existing move as choice. Okay. The other thing we're going to talk about quickly before I go into my favorite types of these two, because there are, as we said before, there's a couple of different types. So there's Apocalypse or Dungeon World, which is roll plus a thing, add a bit, subtract a bit. And I'm putting Uncharted Worlds kind of in its own thing now, because they do plus stat. So this is +1 minus, or plus X minus X, I guess. Roll plus hex. Monster Hearts is you can't deal with it or grow up. And that's like quite literally, right? Uncharted Worlds is plus stat, where you don't roll. In Uncharted Worlds, you don't roll the bonds or the history with the character. You roll plus the appropriate stat of what you're doing. That is a. I'm going to drop words that are going to make people yell about things. That's a simulationist approach to it, for want of a better term. The way of doing it plus hex plus bonds is more of a dramatic way, which is that you're better at helping people that you know a lot about. You're better at helping people that you have connections with. You are worse at helping people that you don't know much about. Whereas in the Uncharted Worlds way, if I'm a fighter pilot, I'm just good at helping people with fighter pilot things. If I'm a hacker, I'm just good at helping people at hacking or by hacking. I can see the benefits to both. And that's a question we're going to have to look at in our move design, which is whether we do plus stat or plus hex. So let's put that on the list, right? In Forge the Dark, plus stat or plus hex. And that's really the question. Now, let's talk about a game that does it differently. Kind of. We're going to talk about the Sprawl. And yes, we did talk about the Sprawl. The Sprawl does have a move called Help or Interfere. The Sprawl does roll plus links. The Sprawl does have a +1/+2 forward. The Sprawl also has a mechanic, which when I saw it was the first time I'd seen it applied in the way it is here, which is called Intel. Now, Intel works kind of like books do in Dungeon World, but a little bit more broadly. No, that's not true at all. They work very, very similar to how books do in Dungeon World. In Dungeon World, you can spend a use of books to spout lore with a +1. That's it. You get a +1 to spouting lore on whatever the book's about. With Reveal Knowledge, when you spend this resource called Intel, you reveal knowledge, and that gives you a +1 forward to exploit the opportunity offered. This at the moment, by the rules as written, offers the opportunity to the character of the player who spent Intel. Right? So, how do we talk about getting Intel? Hit the street. Hit the street's got to have it in there, right? Bam, hit the street. When you go to contact for help, roll plus style. On a... God damn, sorry to everyone watching that. Hit the street, roll plus style. You get what you want. You get a little something extra on a 10 plus. Choose either Intel or Gear. How cool is that? On a 10 plus, I get something extra. It's Intel. Now, because the Sprawl is a heist game and it doesn't want it to get bogged down in the planning the same way that Blades doesn't either, and has approached that in its way, it does this Intel thing Very, very similar to like the Dungeon World approach to gear, which is instead of saying you have to buy 10 feet poles and shit, you just get gear and then you reveal what that gear is later. Um, so there are a couple of moves like that about getting intel. I think there's a research move. Yeah, so research. When you investigate a person, roll plus mind. On a 10 plus, you take intel. Like you take a +1 forward. This is, oh my god, this is so Dungeon World discern realities. On a 7 to 9, ask 1, take +1 forward when acting on the answers. Apocalypse World does the same thing, which is whenever you act on the MC's answers, take +1 in Reader Sitch, which is the charged situation assessment roll. This scroll. There it is. Thank you. This is the same as saying take +1 forward to act on the answers, but it's so much more free. It offers so much more flexibility to the player. Where would I find Roger Merriman? Roger Merriman is in his apartment. You should go there. And so you do. And maybe you don't want to spend that intel to like enter Roger Merriman's apartment. Maybe you want to spend it later to do something else cool, like jump through a window and do a flip. And you can say, oh no, the intel I got was about Roger Merriman's apartment, and so I can jump out of his window and do a flip because I know that he has a window. So intel puts it in the player's hands rather than restricting it by the system. And if we have learned anything in this, it's that the system should be helping players, not restricting them, or more accurately, the restrictions they give them should be helpful. And intel is a helpful way of changing that +1 forward. It also changes the way the resourcing of it. +1 forward is very hard to keep track of because not only you have to keep track of +1 forward, you also have to remember what it's for. If it's intel, it's intel. Great. Now we're going to talk about the real baby. We're going to talk about the real one, the one that I told you to read up on yesterday. I said, or not yesterday, last episode, I said, when you get a chance, read Night Witches. We're going to talk about the aid movie Night Witches. What is Night Witch's aid move? That's the question. So it doesn't have a moves list, but whatever, this way. What is Night Witch's aid move? It's not eyeball. That's an assessment. It's not act up. That's a take what you want move. It's not reach out. That's an ask what you want move / a connection cool thing that I like. It's not scrounge. Because that's a getting gear. It's a take what you want move for gear. It's not repair. That's a cool skill thing that you can do. It's not tempt fate. That's an act under fire. Night moves. It's not even PbtA, which is you act as a wingman or wingwoman. Sorry, as I said, I'm ex-Air Force, and wingman is just such a thing. You act as a wingwoman, and you cover your assigned fellow plane. You have one hold. When they suffer a consequence, you spend your hold to take that on yourself. That is kind of close to an aid move, but it's not what I'm looking for. It's what I hope you found when you went through Night Witches is that it doesn't have an aid move, but it does. The aid move for Night Witches is this, the mission pool. The mission pool is a shared resource generated by the behavior on the ground. It represents the esprit de corps. A well-stocked mission pool might be one with perfectly tuned planes or shiny racks of bombs with special messages to the Wehrmacht written on them. A section with no mission pool might be disorganized, fearful, ill-equipped, or poorly prepared. A mission pool is a communal resource. A mission pool is a communal resource represented by tokens. Each token is worth +1 forward during the following night's mission. Anyone can take a point or more from the mission pool to help with any role as long as planes are in the air. you can spend mission pool points to take +1 forward. And mission pool is generated throughout the day by like scrounge and all that sort of stuff. So let's look at scrounge. Actually, reach out. Let's talk about reach out. This is, we're talking about a mission pool being morale. When you make a personal connection with someone, you can choose on a 7 to 9 to add one to the mission pool. Scrounge, you on a 10 plus, you add one to the mission pool. It's really cool. Like, what I really like about mission pool as a help mechanic is that it's a choice that you have to make so much earlier in the game. It's not even in the same phase. You don't get to say, oh, I'll help them. You have to decide to help people so early, which is a choice that people make. And then it's communal, and people can take from it as they need. And it's teamwork. It's teamwork. Remember, we talked about back in our first thing about what helper interfere was. It's teamwork. It's about presenting this dramatic action that says not even dramatic action. It's about presenting this action at the table where players say, you're not just playing your character, and I'm not just playing my character, and we're not just playing through the GM. We're helping each other. We're working together. We're a team. And Mission Pool does that, because when you have a character who scrounges, actually, let's talk about when you have a character reach out. They can choose to remove 1 harm from each yourself and your friend, and Night Witch's characters get harm so easily. So removing harm each is amazing. Change the target and or tone of a currently filled regard slot. That's really cool. And then add one to the mission pool, which means that and Scrounge is on a 10 plus, you add one to the mission pool. But on a 7 to 9, you get like these 3, or you choose 2 of these 3 really shitty things. Mission pool matters because when you are faced with the choice, do I remove harm from this NPC who I know is going to die when they go into battle because they have harm, and that's how NPCs work? Or do I change this tone or regard slot, which I really, really want to do, change this regard? Or do I add one to the mission pool? That is a really hard choice, because what they're thinking is, I know we'll need a +1 forward later. I want to help people. Can I afford to? And remember, we talked about cost. We talked about why helping people has to have a cost. And this is a really good example of it. Scum and Villainy, which is a Blades in the Dark hack by Strauss. Surname unknown. I'm so sorry, dog. I'm just bringing up Scum and Villainy now, and I don't know if I'm going to have Gambit. Yeah. Okay. Cool. It does have it. So, Scum and Villainy is a futuristic, like, soft sci-fi, Mass Effect-y, Star Wars-y, Cowboy Bebop-y thing that has these elements called gambits. And gambits are you can add an extra die. You have a communal pool, you add an extra die. If you roll a 6 or a critical, you get to add a gambit, as long as you haven't spent one on the roll. I really like gambits. The difference between gambits and mission pool for me is fictional interaction. So the reason that it matters to me is when you get a gambit by succeeding, it represents luck, and luck is so fictionally nebulous that it doesn't really pop up, I guess. Whereas like mission pool is so tied into the fiction about this morale or bombs or something like that. So like, um, yeah, you just when you act up, you add one to the mission pool, which is such a cool thing. You can choose to. But here's the thing, like here's again, this one Act Up does it even better. I tell you, if I edited these things, I would have edited out the thing I said about reach out. Make someone do what you want. If the person so make someone do what you want. Ensure there are no consequences. Add one to the mission pool. Adding one to the mission pool is such a huge investment. In this role, I have three choices. I can get what I came here for. I can stay out of trouble, which this isn't Dungeon World. Getting in trouble isn't like, oh, cool, an excuse to swing my sword. Getting in trouble in Night Witches, you get fucking interrogated, or you get chewed out by your commanding officer, or you get sidelined, or some shit happens that's hard. So I can either get what I came here for, I can get out without trouble, or I can help someone. And so when I've played Night Witches, when someone rolls and they get a 7 to 9 and they say, what are my choices? The group will sit around them and say, mission pool, mission pool, mission pool, mission pool, mission pool, and yell it at them. The player, if they choose mission pool, will get a cheer from their friends. It's so beautiful, right? It's so beautiful. Now, that's really, and then when someone spends mission pool, it's like leery, especially a 7 to 9 to a 10 plus. Oh man, 7 to 9 to 10, like when someone rolls a 9 and they see that mission pool and there's only like one left in it, they're like, come on guys, like we might as well get a 10. Like it just the conflict that comes out of it is so beautiful. It's such gorgeous design. And so the big things about um, Night Witches and about mission pool that makes it interesting is that it's a preemptive decision. It always comes at a cost. Technically not true because of Scrounge, but I'm talking more about like the act up sort of thing where it is because that's the bit that interests me, right? Always comes at a cost. Choice of a very attractive list. What's interesting about Mission Pool? It is a limited resource communal. And I think the other thing about it is that it's I'm not sure if this is something I want to carry, but help is the only thing it's used for. And it doesn't roll over. Those last two, what I'm talking about there is that the argument for spending mission pool comes from it not rolling over insofar as once you land, your mission pool is 0. Again, it's not like, oh, we should save this for the day or like we might need it tomorrow night. I think I always think of that 0 punctuation joke about whenever I play shooters, I'm always sitting on an arsenal of nuclear missiles, throwing rocks at a robot crab out of fear that there's like a bigger robot crab right behind it. And I think that's a really like common emotional response. So if you don't use it, you lose it, which means that you're incentivized to burn it, but you also want to keep it because you want that security blanket. So it provides this really. Otherwise, if there wasn't a if you don't use it, you lose it thing, it'd get to the point where you would have so much mission pool that you could basically never fail, and it would be okay. Because like, if you roll Snake Eyes, if you roll a 2, and you have plus worst case, you roll a 2 and you've got a -1 on the stat, you've got a result of 1. You can spend 6 mission pool to get that up to a 7. If you could store 6, if you could, I almost guarantee if people could store 7 mission pool, they would do that, because they'd be like, oh, we've got to use it just to like chew through it. We've got 6. That's so many. Let's just use it all now, and then we've still got 1 left as that safety blanket. But there is a difference. There is a psychological difference in the player between having 1 left and having nothing left, and that's the difference. Is that as when it gets to whether or not you're going to use the mission pool, it's not like, oh well, as long as we land with 1 left. It's we want to land with nothing, because then we know we've had the best result we could have tonight. And so that's a big thing. It doesn't roll over. Use it or lose it. The other thing is help is the only thing it can be used for. So mission pool isn't used for anything else, which makes it a really risky proposition, because you're basically saying, I'm going to get in trouble in the hope that I get into less trouble later, or in the hope that like later there's less trouble. But it's also it's not nebulous. It's not like, I'll add 1 to the mission pool because we might use it later, because mission pools can give you, I don't know, you can spend a mission pool to be in a scene, or you can spend a mission pool to do a flashback or something like that. Like, it's so much less nebulous. It's so restricted in its power, and that power is so great and also so minimal at the same time. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Now, that's an interesting thing to think about, talking out loud there. Mission pool. It's like, how do I want to put this? Help is the only thing it's used for. It's like it's a known quantity that is unlikely to be used by the person generating it. So it feels selfless to do mission pool. Actually, that's the other thing we were talking about, wasn't it? Which is that mission pool is fictionally relevant, which is cool. So I think the things to look at here is that I want some sort of pool stat. I want question to be like, do you spend a communal resource? Do you spend a communal resource to help yourself, others? Okay, that's another thing. Actually, that's another thing that kind of goes into the only person generating it. You choose when to add +1 to your roll. It's not another person helping you It's not another player saying, oh no, I will help you get through this. It's a person conducting that level of badassery. Now, that kind of goes against the part of this that we're talking about, which was like dramatic moment teamwork. And that's because I think Night Witches, which I should put in the Night Witches section, I think Night Witches does its dramatic moment teamwork in Vedomaya. I think I misspelled that. That's the plural. What's the Vedomaya? No, I was right. Cool. Okay. So I think that this is important because this is the diving in front of the bullet thing, right? If you want to help another aircraft after using VMA, probably tempting fate. See, hey, look, it's a help move, pulling double duty. Bless ya. Does tempt fate? I don't think tempt fate has a bit about. It just says you do it. I guess you could talk about whether you do it could give someone a +1. No, I think that's probably a little bit of a stretch on the move. I think you could do it at your table, but I don't think it fits a design conversation. Oh boy, that's a thing. Talking about you can do it at the table, but I don't think it fits a design conversation. Another time. A Vetemaya, a wingwoman, dives in front of the bullet and gives you the dramatic moment. Mission pool gives you the mechanical moment. There's no this is a problem. This is a problem with the concept of mission pool, because so remember we were talking about fictional, mechanical, fictional. So on a 10+, you get what you need and add 1 to the mission pool. So adding 1 to the mission pool is the mechanical consequence. To get what you need is the fictional consequence, right? That's really cool. That's awesome. Scrounge works really well. This doesn't, because it doesn't tie in the fictionality. This is what we were talking about before. In fact, reach out is the move that we used. So I can go back to this, and I can go back to the one that I wanted. When you reach out, remove 1 harm from you or your friend, change a tone, add 1 to the mission pool. What I would really like to see is like your squadron has each other's backs, or like you can trust them, or like morale is lifted, or you're an inspiration, or something like that. Like I want the mission pool to have that fictional tie-in, because at the moment, mission pool does not have a dramatic moment, because mission pool is a okay. This is interesting because I've said something completely different earlier. This is interesting. This is me discovering a thing. So I said before that what I really liked is that it's fictionally relevant. So let's talk about how it is fictionally relevant, right? So let's talk about fictionally relevant mission pool. It is fictionally relevant as an entity, not in generation. It's really clear what mission pool represents in the fiction. It represents morale and equipment and maybe luck and all these little. No, see, it doesn't. It doesn't represent luck. That's the thing. It doesn't. It represents competency. It represents morale and equipment and people working together and maybe the skill of the pilot and all these sorts of things. It represents an excess of equipment for the Night Witches, which still be a dearth anywhere else in the world. but it's not fictionally relevant in its generation, except for maybe Scrounge. Because in Scrounge, we can really see it, right? Which is you find some extra stuff, you put it in the box, and then later you've got really good shit. The problem is that the more let's do less caps. More fictionally specific, which is kind of what I'm talking about with relevant, generation is, more specific use case must be. What I'm talking about there is, does it make sense if we scrounge extra bombs and I use mission pool on the navigate roll? This is a problem. The more fictionally specific we are about things in Powered by the Apocalypse games, the less flexibility we grant to the use of those tools. This is the difference between calling a move, go aggro, and threaten with a pistol, or put a gun in their face. The difference is when you go aggro and when you put a gun in your face. The difference is that I can't do the second move with a sword, even though it might be the designer's intent that I can. I can't fictionally trigger, put a gun in their face. If I walk up to someone with a baseball bat that I have hammered nails through, dripping with the blood of their gang leader, and I walk up in front of them and I stand there, and I look them dead in the eye and I say, I fucked up Briggs, your chopper gang leader guy. You either follow me or I'm going to do you next. I'm not putting a gun in their face. Because the game exists on a specific level at that point. And that is the problem with making mission pool fictionally specific. Is that, and if we don't, if we put that, if we move this to the use case, to the use side, as with Intel gear, we create bookkeeping / admin. The reason I say that is if we come back to the sprawl, when you Intel actually, Intel's not as bad as I thought. What's the gear one? So I had an incorrect assumption about this, which is that when you reveal your knowledge of the operations person, yeah, cool. So this, describe how you discover that information and spend intel, is tied to how you generated the intel, or else intel is a narrative authority tool. and I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one it's meant to be. So I'm not sure if if move to this view side, we create bookkeeping admin, i.e., is mission pool a real thing or just narrative authority? So the best way to probably explain this is to talk about what the sprawl could have said, which is the sprawl could have said, when you spend intel, talk about how you got it and how it provides you this benefit. Add +1 to the situation, right? But it doesn't. It says reveal how you learnt something. It doesn't say reveal where you got the intel, like protected word brackets, square brackets, intel from. It says reveal where you got the information. Side note, mechanical side note, then spend intel. And it's like it's disconnected. The fiction and the mechanics there are disconnected. And that is not what you want. You don't want fiction and mechanics disconnected as much as you can help it. But I can see why fiction and mechanics are disconnected there. And that's the thing, right? Like I can disconnecting fiction and mechanics at that point drives better play than it would connecting them, which I venture a guess from someone who has not put any time into designing it to see if it would work. I venture a guess that is not the best way to design it. That in Powered by the Apocalypse, the design philosophy and the design goal should always be fiction leads to mechanics, not fiction exists and mechanics exist and they are equivalent. Not equivalent, they are equal or comparative or something. 4:33 a.m. I'll fuck up a word if I want to. Man, I'm gonna have some regrets watching this one back. But it's okay, because I think we found really cool shit. And I think we found shit we wouldn't have found if I wasn't talking through it like this, if I wasn't talking through it loopily. And that's actually why I'm doing this, why I'm doing these videos, because I found things talking to you, my friend, talking to you, Jesse Ross, the only person watching these videos. I found things in this that I wouldn't have found on my own. So let's talk about things to think about while we go away. So, things to think about. And we'll talk about it next time. And that's fine. It'll probably depend on this. I could do another fucking episode on aid moves. I love these. Because I think they're shit so far. I think that I think the +1 -2 is annoying, and like it's crazy to me because like Fraser puts so much love and care into every element of the Veil, and his playbooks are so evocative, and things like there's so much of the Veil that is beautiful and unique that could never happen in Apocalypse World. It's not a reskin. It's something totally different and totally beautiful. And that help and hinder move just brings nothing to the table in itself. And it's hard. It's hard to I know and love Fraser, and it's I really like his company, and it's hard for me to say like that I don't like a part of his design. But I hope he takes it as such if he ever sees this, or if anyone ever tells him I said this, Jesse Ross. I hope that he understands that, and I hope actually all the designers of all the games I'm talking about here understand that when I say your aid moves are wanting, it's because the rest of your games are so gorgeous and so beautiful and set such high expectation that when I see an aid move and I'm like, I'm not interested, I'm not inspired by this move. That is me saying to you that the rest of your game inspires me so wholly. And honestly, if you're looking for some cool cyberpunk inspiration, the Veil is spot on. So good. So good. So good. It also has like obligation moves, which, oh my god. The idea of like a whole section on obligation just makes me so happy. The Veil is a good game, and Veil Cascade is probably a good game that I haven't played yet, and Hack the Planet is probably a good game that I haven't played yet. And I'm very, very glad that I will get to play one day. Okay. Things to think about. Things we're going to think about for next time. So what we're going to think about is 4:37. Let's have this wrapped up in 10 minutes so I can die. We're going to think about shared resource aid moves, i.e. take a token to get +1. And we're going to think about specifically tying fiction to mechanic. Where do we define what +1 means? We're going to talk about using. We're going to think about using the resource for things other than aid. This is Blaze in the Dark. Blaze in the Dark uses stress for aid. You take 1 stress and you give someone a die. That is a resource that you. That's a resource that you use for other things, which is kind of interesting. It's good because it condenses it down. It means you don't have to have mission pool and stress. And also, speaking of condensing it down, double duty. Can the move be integrated? Integrated other moves. And this is pretty much what Sprawl and Night Witches does as exists. But I want to look more towards the Uncharted. God damn. The Uncharted Worlds way of doing things. Not the way that Uncharted Worlds does it, but the way that it could do it because of that name. So let's speak about that. Uncharted Worlds esque name. Evocative, interesting, double duty. Yeah. So there are things to think about coming away from it. Next session, we will talk about maybe answering the above questions, maybe. And then we're going to talk about move design. We're going to talk about templating, reskinning, and probably more of like a whole cloth approach to it. Oh, we're also going to look at I won't say whole cloth. We're going to say templating, reskinning, and genre emulation. Right. Awesome. thank you for spending this time with me. It's been about an hour and 15, which has been an absolute joy, and I have learnt a lot. This is, as I said, the only time I got today to do this. Um, it has been incredibly productive. I do not think I would have gotten half as much as I did if I did it alone. I hope that we've also spoken about like making mistakes and like making errors and misspeaking and stuff, and why that's okay. Um, and I hope that we also have provided you something interesting to think about as an individual and as a viewer. Um, I don't know when the next one will be. Incredibly busy at the moment, but I'm probably going to try and get one in on the weekend. Today being Thursday gives us maybe 2, 3, 4 days before another one comes out. I wish you all the best with your own design projects. Please, 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 please get in touch with me on Twitter or through YouTube in the comments, or through Google Plus. Get in touch with me and say, like, tell me what you're working on. Tell me what your design project is at the moment, and tell me like what you think about these problems I'm coming up against, and like how can I do aid moves? Like, what's your ideas? Putting this out there for me is very, very helpful. Sending me back some information might make that even more so, which is very exciting. Very exciting. Um, Otherwise, the only advice I can give you is just keep at it. Just keep drawing that owl, um, and eventually it will be a just a beautiful, wonderful drawing that you'll be proud to have analyzed on a show like this. And I will hopefully one day be able to say the same about this. Farewell.